Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Wednesday. Let's take a look at some alts. This analysis is powered by Kraken. If you don't yet have access to the best crypto exchange on the planet, there is a link in the description of this video that can help you right the ship. I hear it makes you taller, makes your hair longer, makes your skin more supple. That's just a rumor. That's just what I'm hearing on the street. When it comes to BTC, we are finally back above the cloud. It didn't really take too long. Now, it felt like death because alts were down much more than BTC, 60, 70%, some of them. And here I've got people wondering, just based on cloud analysis, what does this mean going forward? Are we fully bullish yet or not? And one thing you have to remember is collectively, this is a checklist of probabilities and assuredness, right? Like, are we as bullish as we can be here based on the checklist? No. Why not? Because we're not twisting on the cloud yet. Green. We don't have a bullish TK cross yet. That'll happen today or tomorrow. And not that this is super relevant, but the TK cross is also below the cloud. So this basically is saying we've done a lot very quickly, despite sitting in bearish territory. Some people will be very angry with that. They won't be happy with that. They will say, well, this is late. It's over. The move happened. You're awful. Why do we look at the cloud at all? And the real reason is because it is slow on purpose. It is supposed to be trimming out the noise and giving you signal. So we may continue to range between, let's say, 87 to 93. That's one option here, as all of the metrics turn a corner. And I'm talking about that specifically in an alt video because as this stuff takes time, alts also may experience the same thing. There's a possibility here that, yes, sure, we keep going, fine. That's always an option. The other possibility is, for whatever reason, based on headlines, we go back to 88, we go back to 91, we just do a bunch of nothing. Certainly possible. The most bullish thing to always look for in stuff like this is a high and tight flag. What we don't want to draw out is a low time frame head and shoulders or anything like that. It looks like we're trying to negate a head and shoulders at the moment. But if we were to break, the current neckline is roughly around 92.7, then sure, I expect us to bounce around in the high 80s, and based on where we sit on the cloud, totally fine. Bitcoin likes the daily cloud a lot historically. I don't expect that to change. And if we look at dominance, I know the alt people are sick of this, but if dominance is still this bullish, there's really little reason to be heavily denominated into alts. Now, alts are going to outperform, at least they should outperform, if BTC gets bullish again. The question is obviously which ones. That's where the technicals come in, because there's just so many of them. But on dominance is still bullish BTC. Easy mode alt season is when alts fall below, or when dominance falls below the cloud. It's still trending pretty heavily bullish here, not seeing any reversal signs whatsoever. That doesn't mean you can't take trades on the USD pairs, because obviously things like Sol and Sui and a bunch of other stuff is up a lot, and it's catching up, and it's just a matter of personal preference. A lot of people, they love page 56. That's where they live. They live on the ultra low cap side of things, penny stock side of things. That's fine. But I think over time, you graduate to having a healthy mix of volatility based on your own comfortability in the market. Stablecoins continue to print, which is very good for alts. Alts require liquidity via stablecoins. That is their lifeblood. To see USDC hitting a new all-time high and circulating is great for DeFi specifically, because DeFi mostly has USDC, and Tether continues to print. Just had a $1 billion print the other day. So the more stablecoin, the more liquidity in the ecosystem, roughly. Obviously with Tether, a lot of that is used IRL for transactions globally, but much of that also sits in the pipes of the crypto ecosystem. Looking at Total 2, which I think is a lot of altcoiners' preference for chart, for benchmark, we're starting to pull up quite a bit. It's getting easier and easier to say this is the bottom. The best case trade is we put in a right shoulder here, just based on my own personal preference with, again, the cloud and these settings. We make a clean neckline, and then we make a break for it sometime in May after putting in some sort of shoulder. Not too dissimilar from what we saw going into 2024. Where we sit here, the most likely targets would be an edge-to-edge trade, and you're going to see that on almost every single altcoin chart. Just because we've seen the bounces we've seen doesn't mean we're in bullish territory yet, and Bitcoin is the same, right? It is on the bullish side of the cloud, but it is not as bullish as it could be for trend. That's going to take some time for that to flip, assuming we hold certain levels. So alts still much more bearish than BTC, but that doesn't mean alts obviously, again, can't just continue through the cloud there. And I thought I'd take a look at a few of the ancillary things. Watch markets also trying to bottom. Will be interesting to see if we see this level hold on the index, and of course NFTs, similar story. Can we see these hold in USD terms? Many of these basically just sitting on the floor, and these are all ETH related NFTs. So maybe Sol NFTs would do better, or some other chains NFTs would do better. But a lot of these are still sitting on the floor, and that just tells me we're in the early stages of what could eventually be a broader alt rally. You're not going to see it first in NFTs, but if NFTs were at infinity, then we could say we were closer to the end than the beginning, but we're not seeing that at all yet. Always good to do a little check on the most frothy things in the market to see where we're sitting. Now, if you see NFTs on late night TV again, then it's probably closer to the end than the beginning. We'll go down the list here on the alt side. Ripple got lucky that we pulled up, right? Because this has and continues to have a broader head and shoulders, undeniably. That is bearish. That gives me caution to touch this at all. Now, the astute bottom callers will tell you down here, we have a mix of inverted head and shoulders, Adam and Eve. Certainly not bearish things are happening on lower time frames here. So assuming Bitcoin can hold, which I'm in that camp, it's going to be hard for Ripple to break down. I just don't know amongst the group and amongst BTC. First question, obviously, does it outperform BTC or not? Yes or no? I tend to think neutral. I'm neutral on that, at least in the early stages. Does it outperform other alts? I think that answer is resoundingly no. And it depends again on your preference. But until this is fully bullish, I don't expect it to do much of anything just yet. Now, is it less bearish than it was before it tried to break down? Sure. But we're not quite there yet on daily Ripple chart. And we can also look at this on like the 12-hour and see, okay, we're almost there. We're almost there. As far as actionability is concerned, what do I want to see? Something on the 12-hour at this point for alts that is above the cloud. Most of these are going to be above the cloud. Or something on the daily that is bullish TK cross price in the cloud. Pepe is a great example of that. 12-hour fully bullish. It's above a diagonal. Great. You got inverted head and shoulders vibes there. If we look at the cloud itself, we're closing likely today in the cloud with a bullish TK cross for the first time since breaking down. This would be an active edge-to-edge trade. First stop loss is always the cloud. The second stop loss is the Kijun. Those are spread quite apart. So again, personal preference here. How soon, how much, that's up to you. But we are the most bullish we've been on charts like this in quite some time. This is going on 3-4 months. So I have much higher confidence in calling a quote bottom when something looks like this, when it's paid its dues, versus, let's just cut to the chase here, versus ETH BTC, which is down, sitting at multi-year lows for a long time. And yes, it's had a good day, but it has had many interesting days on the way down, right? That isn't to say it's a short down here, but based on what I'm comfortable with, based on confidence, and that confidence gets input into the sizing conversation, it just doesn't make sense to try to play around here when something like Pepe looks to me like it's ready to go. It's ready to go based on what we're seeing in the cloud here. Now, do I expect a straight line and all this stuff just like BTC? No, I don't expect a straight line to 100K, but to dip your toe back in the market or to start to get back in a bigger way makes a lot more sense here than it did at any point. Something else with a lot of these charts, they have a W double bottom down here as well. And you can measure that out with fibs. You can say, okay, here's the high, here's the low. That gives you a level. The cloud's going to give you a different level based on the 50% retracement from high to low. But a lot of this stuff looks very constructive for some bullishness. Even ETH, to me, I would just rather trade something else. I'd rather trade ETH beta. That's just me. I'd rather trade the meme coins than ETH directly. It looks like it's trying the bottom on the daily. It's not quite there yet. On the 12-hour, same deal. Maybe you get a decent move here from 1,800 to 2,200, and it's really just personal preference. What do you want to trade? Do you want to trade ETH? Do you want to trade meme coins? I don't know. I'd rather just trade Sol, personally, than trade ETH. at all. Sol continues to look very good. Moving through the 12-hour cloud there, I would love to see if we get something like this. I don't know if we will see that, but my confidence goes way up if we do see that triple bottom inverted head and shoulders. Looking at the daily, we're not quite in the daily cloud yet. And I think it was either Sol on the weekly or Sol BTC. Yeah, so back here in 2023, it entered the cloud at a really high spot, and it didn't really give you the greatest edge-to-edge entry just because it moved so quickly. And for alts, I think people do this already. They move down a time frame outside of the daily just because they move so quickly. But here's the 3-day. And outside of the chart pattern in 2023, you had a great entry on the 3-day. You had a nested inverted head and shoulders here. Where are we at on the 3-day now? We're nowhere. We're just in no man's land. Not really much going on. But on the 12-hour, things look great, right? We're starting to flip everything bullish again here on the cloud. So I'd be much more comfortable with Sol than nearly everything else. SWI also looks excellent. And yes, at any point on the way down, you could have said it's the bottom, but it's much easier and most of the time better to just wait for confirmation. Wait for confirmation. It's up 25% in a day. If you think this is going to 10 or 20, then what is a move from 250 to 3? Is that really that big of a deal? I don't think so. I'd rather wait and be sure. So from here on SWI, I like anything from 250 to 270. And we can even go to the 4-hour, something to watch for, a 50% retrace even on lower time frames. Again, 257, 258, something like that. If I'm ever looking to add, I certainly don't want to chase. I'd rather wait a little bit, give it some time. I don't think all this stuff's going to infinity tomorrow, but it certainly looks a lot better than it has been. Cardano, for the most part, still in no man's land here on the daily, but I know a lot of people love Cardano, and sure, it's looking better than it's looked. You got a little bit of an Adam and Eve down there as well, similar to Ripple, still in this channel, has an active 12-hour edge to edge. So there's a lot more rationale and supporting evidence to get long, be long, stay long than there has been in a long, long time. Over the weekend, we talked about Render, Tau, STX, I think one other one, where those moves look to be waning in the moment. That isn't to say they won't eventually continue, but this is Tau on the 12-hour. It's hitting the cloud there. There's your edge to edge complete. The next trade I'd look for would be maybe something on the daily, maybe a 12-hour move that is more bullish. But you just have to remember, if this is your first rodeo with a bear period, like, look, it takes a while for this stuff to turn around some of the time. And you can always guess, or you can just wait. Just wait to see some strength. And we're seeing that strength finally. Started to see it Saturday this week. Seeing that in a bigger way today and yesterday, obviously. DOT, kind of a different story. It's off the lows, I guess. For stuff further down the market cap, I always want to see more evidence that it can turn a corner. Just because you can trade DOT or you can trade a meme coin, right? You can trade DOT or you can trade Solana. Does it seem like DOT's time right now? No, not to me. AVAX trying to double you out, trying to get into the cloud. Maybe there's a lagging trade situation here relative to some of the other stuff, but it looks good. Undeniably, I'd say a W candidate. We'll just say something like that. 27 to 30 from here. It's certainly reasonable in the wheelhouse. Much easier to make that setup prediction here than it was at any point on the way down. The next question from people is going to be, okay, we got this daily stuff. Then what? It's a wait and see situation. It's if this, then that. If we bottom, then we get the edge to edge. If we get the edge to edge, then we typically consolidate a little bit and then make a decision. So we're not fully bullish on trend for a lot of this stuff, but it's pretty clear that we're bottoming, certainly. LTC not quite looking like much of anything here to me, and just looks like it needs a little bit more time. Maybe on the 12-hour you've got something there, but most of this stuff is underperforming. Meme coins, Fartcoin above $1, holding above $1. If we go to the 4-hour on this, just continues. Markup phase continues. We had a little bit of a breakdown from a triple top here, but is there anything actionable, anything to do? I don't really see it. Maybe if we go to like the 6-hour, I don't really see it. It just looks like it's trending to me. Trump Coin's up a bunch because he announced today that the top 220 holders of Trump Coin are going to have a dinner with him, apparently. Okay, sure. Can't predict that one with technicals, but here we are. Doge on the 6 hour also waking up, a little bit of Adam and Eve down there. If I had to like rank these in a tier list, I still think stuff like that looks like this is on the bottom of the list waiting. I would love to see this get a little bit more of a bottom signal in it with the bullish edge to edge. And as I've said before many times, this is what you want. You want things to lead in a big way, and then something else follows, and then something else follows, because then you get 3 trades instead of 1 trade. The nightmare is everything moves together up and down. That's what you don't want. So you should be rooting for some of this stuff to give you more information, more confirmation that we've bottomed. And if we are bullish, this will get a great trade. This will get a great trade in May. You can mark your calendar, Doge day in May or something like that, right? Up to 28 cents. I just think there's an opportunity cost in trading something like this with the assumption that it'll get there versus some of this other stuff that already has the momentum. Popcat, I think, was the other one I was calling out over the weekend. Again, it looks good. It's looked ready. It looks great. And it's in the daily. I mean, what else do you want, right? This is what you want. This is what dreams are made of right here as far as meme coin movements. Pepe, we already talked about, still looks plenty bullish. I like that level there on the cloud. 13,000 sats, thereabouts. Bonk, similar, slightly behind Pepe and Popcat. Looks okay. Looks better than it has in months. With similar to Doge, I think it needs a little bit more time, but best it's looked in months. Can't deny that. Give this stuff like a week-ish, and we'll probably have full-blown confirmations on everything that we're setting up for mean reversions. And as long as BTC isn't screaming, alts tend to do better when there's a known trend or direction, but BTC isn't sucking all the air out of the room. And I think that's partly where we're at right now, where there's this shift, the hot ball of money is rotating around, right? SHIB, similar to Doge and WIF, needs a little bit more time down there. Floki, same, needs a little bit more time. And then on the BTC pairs, real quick, Sol BTC looks to be setting up for the opposite of what it's set up as on the way down. It has a pretty aggressive IHS potential with, again, an edge to edge. It's with the cloud and anything I do, there's like 5 things I'm always looking for. And we're getting there as far as the setup here on Sol BTC. And this is a pretty sizable, chunky move relative to BTC on the recovery. Now, where people get into trouble is if we get this move, they're either late or they don't let some of it go, or they keep holding onto it, assuming it's going to go to infinity. The trader in me says, take what you can get relative to BTC. And at this point, if we get to 002 on Sol, I like that as a rotation out of any Sol positions and back into BTC. ETH BTC, we mentioned, this to me just needs more time. It needs probably 4 weeks where everything else needs 1. It is the burden of proof is on the bulls of ETH BTC for this thing to actually pull up, because it's just been down only for years at this point. Ripple BTC looks more bearish than Ripple USD does. You can see it's starting to poke below the cloud there. Nothing really bullish at all. It's got nested head and shoulders here on the broader head and shoulders. So I don't like anything here. The cloud is telling you to stay out from a relative basis. So definitely not ready on that one. LTC, BTC also looks abysmal on the pair here. I think that's probably an all-time low. It's sitting there at all-time lows. So that doesn't look too great. PAXG, which is gold. It's great to see this reversing. It's great to see this settling down, because just like alts need BTC to not suck all the air out of the room, BTC needs gold to not suck all the air out of the room. So maybe into 2026, this is an interesting idea to just keep on the back burner. Maybe into 2026, we do see this actually play out, where there's a broad bear market in crypto. Gold doesn't necessarily do much of anything, but just holds its levels. And we see this mega inverted head and shoulders play out with this edge to edge for gold BTC. Just something to keep in mind, maybe with some alerts down here. I don't know, 039 or something. Interesting little bellwether if things do get bearish in 2026. Tron BTC on the daily pulled back quite a bit. I think Tron's settled down now. ADA, giant range mess. Anything else notable down here? Doge at all-time lows there. And again, what do you want to see? You want to see some evidence that this has bottomed into the cloud. Then it makes more sense to rotate. Then it makes more sense to see Bitcoin dominance pull back a little bit when this stuff starts to have a chance to pull up. So I don't think we're quite there on relative basis stuff just yet. And one last chart I'll look at, curve. This one has held levels. It already has an active daily edge to edge there. So probably a little late, but this is the path, the general direction that you want to see in the expectation of how long this can take to play out. Two more quickly, STX. Similar story, give it a couple days. I think it's ready to give you that full signal. This is effectively Bitcoin beta, Caspa, similar again, giving you bottomy signals. So collectively, lots of bottomy signals. I don't know how much more juice we're going to see on BTC in the near term. Makes a little bit more sense to me if we consolidate for a little bit and then keep going throughout the quarter into May. But clearly alts are in a better spot than they have been for months and months and months and months after that move by BTC. That's all for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.